Alright, here we are, punters. Off to breakfast with the best. What time is it? 5:06. Waiting for T-Dogs in the Jeep. Should be a big morning. Hopefully we can have a look at a few of the horses, see how they've come on since their last runs from a yard point of view, and then yeah, we'll look to do some other stuff as well. So here we are, first vlog.
Giving him a spin around.
Right, here's Via Sistina. Just before she goes out, she's a real imposing type. You can see how much length she has. She moves really well. Comparing her to, say, Broadsiding, who's over in the back here, he just doesn't have the same length as a few of the other horses. You can definitely tell he's the 3-year-old. He is coming here quite fit, but when you compare the two, she looks like she's playing a different sport too compared to what he is. He doesn't have anywhere near as much sort of length to his stride. It doesn't sort of have the imposing frame that she does. I love this mare. The more I see her, the more I fall in love with her. She's a freaking beast. Look at that. Look at that hindquarter. T-Dogs. What do you expect?
I've never really seen her work, to be honest, so I guess you're not expecting them to do too much your Tuesday morning before the Cox Plate, so probably expect her to run home in, 25 on the bridle and just doing everything nice. So you got Via Sistina here. This is her second hit out at the Valley. She came here Thursday morning. Oh, that's no good. So she just knuckled, and J-Mac came off. Now she's running free. That's a disaster for a horse heading towards the Cox Plate. That is probably the worst case scenario for one of these breakfasts with the bests. J-Mac got to his feet. J-Mac seems fine, but they've got to pick up Via. So
the crowd is stunned.
Yeah. That is probably the worst case result you could have going towards a Cox Plate, is your final gallop, I would have thought. You can see Chris here, just running past. And now they've got to try and get her, because she was bolting when she went past us. She wasn't going to stop, so.
Absolute drama down here. The tension is huge. She's doing another lap there. They haven't caught her yet. She's over there.
Yeah, she's just gone past. Where is she? 1,000?
Yeah, 1,800.
Yeah, she's just heading to the school now.
So she's already worked, done a lap, and she's doing another one, galloping. This is terrible. She could come out.
You got a feel for him, don't you? Like, this is the worst case scenario for a breakfast with the best. So J-Mac stumbled off her. Well, she stumbled. He fell off her at, the 150? Then she's got loose.
It was like she kind of stumbled coming around the bend.
Yeah, I don't know. She just lost stride, didn't she? And then she nearly fell over.
They're so lucky she hasn't done any real harm by the looks of things.
Yeah. Who's on a tissue? Was it Marira?
Maybe Marira.
He didn't want to stop her. Like, he's obviously there.
Like, Broadsiding's coming back. They're keeping him quiet as a lamb over there. Absolute scenes, punters.
Yeah, that's an absolute disaster.
Right, what do we think? Is she going to run?
Well, we got word from Ned Hunt, who's one of the 7 producers who was talking to Chris Smoller, or they were filming him and he said they're definitely going to accept. So, and then wait as late as they can to make a decision whether she runs. I think that's the obvious. Like, if I was a trainer, I'd be doing the same thing. Like, if it was one of our horses, I'd be telling Dave, don't not accept. You know, you'd be very sick if Saturday morning she's A-OK. So it'll be interesting. Like, I wonder what it sort of means. Do they bring in Kovalika? Does Royal Patronage want to accept now? Because he galloped really well this morning. And this is all, we're reacting to this live as it happens. So I don't know. It could mean we still end up with 7 in the Cox Plate. It could mean we end up with 9 because 2 other horses want to chance their arm. And this is what Gallop Mornings do. They make you change plans, you know, and that's why when we talk about all-in markets and futures, and you've got to be flexible, you know, because at the end of the day, the trainers are just trying to give their horses the best chance of winning the right race. And if they've galloped super on Tuesday, like Royal Patronage, I reckon they'd have to be thinking about running the Cox Plate because he works so well. So he handled the Valley well. Whereas this horse, like, obviously they're going to accept that they're a huge question mark whether they run. So it's very interesting, isn't it? The drama of Cox Plate week, eh?
That was so unfortunate today. How was your mare Via Sistina?
Yeah, she's remarkably fine. That was our first concern with James and the horse.
Yeah.
We could see that she tripped, put her in an awkward stride, and you always fear the worst. But then the horse continued on, that was great. And James to get on his feet straight away was also. So I think anything else is a bonus once you've got that far. And unfortunately, she looks like she's fine. That bet's been over her. There's not a piece of hair off, no skin off. And she seems fine. It's a long week. We'll see how she is later in the week.
All right, Cox Plate morning breakfast with the best. Carl Dioro, one of the hardest workers in racing. What did you make of this morning with Via Sistina?
Well, I think everyone woke up a little bit quickly, didn't they? It was it was terrible to see. Thankfully, the vet has cast her eye over Via Sistina, and Bell reports that she's come through it okay.
Yep.
And the latest is that Chris Waller intends to accept. So fingers crossed that we can see her participate on Saturday.
You've been to many of these things. Have you seen anything like that?
Took me back to, I think, Corey Brown on Rangi Rangdu maybe 10 years ago. He was dislodged just over the line, and then I think Rangi Rangdu then came out and won the Crystal Mile later in the week. So,
and were they intending to run the Cox Plate, or was it they intending to run the Crystal Mile?
I think it was always the Crystal Mile.
Okay.
They were umming and ahhing, but I think, it just goes to show how quickly those things can turn from, ball lollies to chocolates.
Yeah, exactly right. We've got 2 international horses in the Cox Plate. Your Royal Austria international form. A little bit of insight into Docklands. What sort of horse is he comparable to who's been out here in the past?
Well, he certainly brings in great form. I think he's obviously been owned by OTI the whole way through. And so we always knew this day would come that he'd transition to Australia, but he's coming into the hottest race of all. 2 starts ago, he ran second in the Queen Anne, which is their strong mile race at Ascot. He got back off a strong tempo, finished nicely. That was a weaker than usual Queen Anne, but still very much a good performance for the Cox Plate. And then the first time we saw Docklands over this distance was in the Juddmonte International, a very, very strong race, probably Europe's strongest race this year, and got back and finished off nicely for 7th. The 4th horse in that race then came out and won the Arc. It was truly run from the 1,000 onwards. I think the high-pressure race of the Cox Plate will definitely play into the hands of Docklands. Expect him to settle in the second half of the field and be finding the line nicely.
Do you reckon he's a bit of a horse with a real rough show in the race? He's going to start probably one of the longest priced horses in the race.
I would imagine so, just through, I suppose, ignorance and people not really being familiar with his credentials. But if Prognosis wasn't in the field, I would be definitely endorsing a strong bet on Docklands.
Then on Prognosis, he's obviously he can be his own worst enemy by the looks of things. He doesn't want to jump sometimes. But obviously his form's world class.
Yeah, I mean, I've just gone through the tapes again this week. His 5 runs the last 12 months have been fantastic. Obviously, a couple of defeats to Romantic Warrior that if his behaviour at the gates was a little bit better and maybe the tempo was a little bit more suitable, he could have definitely overturned the result. But I do feel the last start performance in the Sapporo Kinnan was sound. It ran 4th, but they didn't go too hard in front by Japanese standards. I thought the performance, considering, was all right. So galloped here on Thursday morning, worked well, and I think, hot speed set up by Private Jenny, they'll just allow him to finish home strongly, I'd suspect.
Well, thanks for your time, Carl. Who are you tipping in the Cox Play?
By the sounds of a prognosis.
Best of luck.
Thank you.
Broadsiding here. Looks like he's come on a bit since the Guineas. They should give him a good hit out here this morning. Jay Carter ride. Moving quite well. He's not the best mover, this horse. Doesn't move as well, say, Via Sistina and Brightside, but I think that's what we'll see from him in the future. He'll be a very good wet tracker. He doesn't have the size or scope as a few of the other 3-year-olds you've probably seen running the Cox Plate, but he's an absolute pro. That was probably the thing I took of most note, him at the Caulfield last start, just how relaxed he was in the mounting yard. But he's not the most imposing type. But he does look, again, like most horses here today, in great order.
His first time. But it's nice work. He's got the head in front of the stable, mate. They're about to let him just do the best bit of his work here the last 100 metres. He puts away the working companion quite nicely. Yeah, gee, they'd be pretty happy with that, I would have thought.
Cummings has joined us on breakfast. Good morning, James.
Good morning, guys. How are you?
Going very well. How's your morning been?
The morning's been very good. I'm uncomplicated and
Well, considering what's happened, that's pretty nice, I imagine.
yeah, and that's how you want it.
Natural comparison that everyone's going to make with your boy Broadsiding is to the horse you ran in the Cox Plate only 3 years ago in Animo as a 3-year-old. Talk us through the build-up with Animo from a Caulfield Guineas to a Cox Plate and Broadsiding. Has there been any similarities in that final stages before preparing for a Cox Plate?
Well, they both used the Caulfield Guineas as their lead-up run to the Cox Plate. I thought you might say, so you think, for a moment.
Well,
with the horses
you could
in
reference
the
him a
poster
little
right,
bit as well,
right in front of you. The thing is that those 3-year-olds, they get their chance against their own age at Caulfield, and for 40 years, the winners of the Caulfield Guineas have found it actually hard to win. Animo a few years ago got the advantage of having Zaki the temperature on race morning. He was a big player in that Cox Plate that year. And so Animo nearly became favourite. She was very elegant, probably started favourite in the end. Sure, she did. But the lead up he had was different in the sense that he lost the Golden Rose on a railers track and won the Caulfield Guineas. Whereas this horse got up and won the Golden Rose and lost the Caulfield Guineas. So he's come through the right races. He's had a different 2-year-old career campaign. He very unusual. I don't think it's been done for a horse to win 3 feature 1,600 metre races as a 2-year-old. So I'm drawing on that as the grounding that Broadsiding's had that Animo didn't have to be ready for the Cox Plate, and subsequently he's been capable of getting here fit enough with only 2 lead-up runs this spring.
What do you put down the defeat in the Caulfield Guineas to? Is there any particular excuse or reasoning that you thought that got him beaten in the Caulfield Guineas?
Well, look, hopefully after the weekend, that's ancient history. The horse got out with a little bit of time left to make up 4 lengths. He couldn't make it up, so subsequently he rated down. But I feel like he's therefore left Caulfield with some stored energy, and that's going to play into his favour for the Cox Plate. He arrives here third up off a run where he hit the line well, and it feels like it'll be suitable to see the horse step up to 1.25 miles, which is at least something to take into this weekend. But there's no doubt that he's going to need to go to a whole new level to be beating these horses. Admittedly, at weight per age, he gets the 1.5 mile weight pull, given that it's past 1.25 miles, and you get a lot of your 49.5. But it's weight per age is weight per age, and he's going to need to go to that level. And as a 3-time Group 1 winner, we feel like he's worthy of being tested.
Here he is, Mr. B, the good horse. Love how relaxed he is, great mover. Looks in tip-top order. Great muscle definition. They've got the heart rate tracker on him there. See how he is on his gallop. That's what all the stables will do today. I'll put that on them to see how their data comes through.
Mr. Brightside, courtesy of Ben Hayes, choose. Does he go 1? Does he go closer? to 1, but doesn't want to go 1. Here goes barrier number 2, which in the last 30 years has only been successful on 2 occasions.
All right, joined by Grace Ramage. Grace, one of the best mornings of the year. You guys had Mr. Brightside out here spinning around. What do you do?
Yeah, he was here to have just a nice cruisy sort of home gallop where he came home in about 24-25. He came home in 25-2. Craig came back to the inside of Poifek, the stablemate. So you could see in the footage that Craig had a lap full of horse, and if he asked Mr. B to go faster, he certainly would have done that and would have been happy to do that. So yeah, it was certainly a good piece of work for him, and we'll have him spot on for Saturday in the boys' minds, and certainly Craig was very happy with the piece of work as well.
Was that always the plan, to hit the Cox Plate 5th up?
It was always the plan to hit the Cox Plate 5th up. Obviously there was some thought that you could go to a Turnbull Stakes, in which case he'd be 3 weeks between runs on either side of that Turnbull, and in a Cox Plate 4th up, potentially going to the Champions Day as well, 5th up. But Cox Plate 5th up was where he landed last year, and he's been able to have 2 weeks between each run. So, now second time 2,000, and with that last start, real test of a 2,000 metre contest behind Denied Knowledge in the Might and Power, it should have him absolutely peaking.
When you knew there was 9 runners, you're sitting on the table together with the connections, was the decision that you'd want to draw inside, was that what you were thinking?
Yeah, I think Ben had spoken to Craig and he said as low as possible. But there's always just that thing about barrier 1, the coffin can always just be, especially around the valley, it's the heebie-jeebies. So I think barrier 2 is perfect, and the way that it's worked out with Docklands, he doesn't look to have a heap of gate speed. We can probably cross him, get to the fence anyway, potentially end up sort of in a loose box seat scenario, which means he gets the slipstream, and hopefully, can be finishing off very strongly.
Having Royal Patronage in the race probably helps you guys as well. Maybe a horse to cut up the field to Pride of Jenny.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of the trainers that were standing there chatting this morning when they saw Royal Patronage in the field, they're like, yes. Except for maybe Kiramar, but anyway, with Pride of Jenny, she does her thing anyway. He and the camp aren't phased. But Royal Patronage will certainly be there to be able to be a bunny for the rest of the field to try and get to Jenny in the concluding stages.
Sunday, we all thought Evaporate would be going to the Carbine Club. What changed the mind with the stable to run in a Cox Plate?
I think it was certainly a discussion, and the boys all chatted through the idea that it was a small field. You've got one chance with a horse like Evaporate, who has just done nothing wrong this whole campaign. Even when you look at his sectionals, every last 400, 200 is through the line very strong. So he's done nothing wrong. There's still upside, and you only get one chance with a horse like him with 49 kilos in a Cox Plate. So the small field certainly made it feel like we'd be silly not to have a crack. It's very much an unknown, of course it is. But with 49 kilos on your back and the record that 3-year-olds have in the race, and the fact that Broadsiding's in the market and there wasn't too much between them and the Caulfield Guineas last start. So it was a very last-minute decision, but I think all the connections are absolutely over the moon.
Yeah, and so they should be. 3-year-olds have a great record in the Cox Plate. What did he do this morning? Because he wasn't here at breakfast with the best. Obviously, he's well acquainted with the valley, been here plenty of times and won races. But what did he get up to this morning?
He's actually at the farm. So he went back to the farm in between races. There was going to be an extra week, thinking he'd be getting to the Carbine Club. So he went back up to Euroa. He's doing his final piece of work tomorrow morning. So, he'll be spot on as well for Saturday.
Well, best of luck in the Cox Plate. Super exciting few days. Surely your leanings to Mr. B. I know you love Mr. B.
Yeah, everybody loves Mr. B. Of course, it's just that I reckon it was almost a year ago that straight after the race and after the gut-wrenching, we thought we won but then we didn't win scenario, it was like, well, we're doing an Animo and we're coming back next year and we're winning. So we're still hoping that transpires come Saturday.
Well, best of luck. Thanks for joining.
Good morning at breakfast with the best. Some big stories went down. That was huge with Via Sistina. Hopefully you all enjoyed the content. Big updates there with the barrier draw as well. It's going to be a cracking Cox Plate. Really looking forward to it. We're going to have a full preview on Spotify, runner by runner of the Cox Plate, and then the rest of the content will be on Patreon for the rest of the races for Moonee Valley. What an outstanding weekend. Can't wait. Can't believe it's only Tuesday. We've got a long time to wait here, punters, but can't wait for Cox Plate weekend. Thanks for joining us. Make sure to stay tuned to the racing show.